Broadcasting live from the flagship studios in New York's Hudson Valley. This is Revenge of the 80s Radio!
Johnny, Are You Queer by Josie Cotton. Josie recently released her new Pussycat Babylon album, and she's back on Revenge of the 80s Radio now to talk about it. Welcome back, Josie.
Thank you so much, Chris. It's good to be back.
I'm glad to have you back. Pussycat Babylon is your third album in the last 5 years, and the first since the rather intriguing Invasion of the B-Girls from 2007. But you've said that Pussycat Babylon was the first real Josie Cotton album since the 80s.
It's the first completely dance-orientated record with a very new wave feel at moments. I was wanting to do something that was reminiscent of that era for my fans who've been so insanely patient with all my experimentations in music.
We had a lot of fun with those experimentations, though, especially with your 2006 movie Disaster music. It sounded a lot like the B-movie soundtrack songs, but there was a little bit of the dance aspect to it, but more of the sort of new wave rock to it. I thought I would have considered that more of a Josie Cotton album as well.
That record was described in a completely different way than I'd ever been described, and I was happy to go into another direction with my vocals and just more of a dreamy kind of James Bond feeling record. So, but I'm glad that there is a connection between all of them. I think it's important, and I'm afraid sometimes I leave my fans really questioning what the hell I'm doing because I don't know often. So this record is really for my fans, and it's really a record that you can dance to every song, even the ballads. I was trying to make it reminiscent of Roxy Music when they would have music that was obviously sad ballad, but you could dance to it, and there's that's going on in this record as well. It's if you don't listen to the lyrics, you don't really know what I'm either trying to say, and sometimes it's better that you know nothing of what I mean and just listen to the music. And, that's definitely the situation with this record.
Speaking of lyrics, Josie, your first track, Calling All Girls, seems to be something of a trip through your mind, sort of a tour through your creative genius, I'll have to say. The lyrics were about kittens piloting spaceships, dressing up as a sexy X-ray technician, dating movie serial killer Michael Myers. Tell us a little bit about you, Josie.
Well, it's funny. It started off like most of my songs. It's just a melody and then words popping into my head. But it turned into really me wanting to communicate with young girls. My niece at the time was being taken in a lot of directions. I'm sure a lot of girls were at the time. She was very into Paris Hilton. It was such a superficial way for a girl to go. I was worried about her, and then this became not through my own wanting it to, but it just became my communication with girls. And as much humor as there is in it, and even risque kind of comments, I actually mean a lot of the things I say in it. I was trying to communicate something to girls. It's hard being a girl in this culture, and to not get ridiculously distracted by being feminine and running after boys, and to find who you are without all the stereotypes. So that's a rambling answer, but that is what my intent was at one point along in the songwriting. But thank you for your compliments. It's very sweet.
Well, your non-musical influences seem to shine through in this song in particular, and throughout the whole album. And I'm talking about what we talked about last time when you were on Revenge of the 80s Radio, the science fiction movies, the old classic B movies. A lot of elements of that were tossed in throughout the album as well. Yeah,
I can't seem to escape the B movie culture and everything it's represented to me. Even this new video I just completed actually today, the final edit I saw, it's like a B movie from Japan, and there's a lot of sci-fi references. I think I'm just damaged, Chris. I don't know. As a kid, they were my buddies, the monsters, and we talked about that before. They just run around in my head, and I find it amusing. It amuses me to talk about it, and makes me, happy to let them live through me in a way.
Other tracks on the CD, like Everything's Oh Yeah and Recipe for Disaster, also All I Can See Is the Face of Bruce Lee, have a lot of that classic 60s, 70s B-movie flavor to them as well. How important are these non-musical influences to Pussycat Babylon? And going back to our first question, why do they help make this a real Josie Cotton album?
I don't even think those influences were in my first records. I was a pretty straight-ahead pop artist, and there are fans I have who remember me in that way and want me to be forever and to continue in that tradition. I think my personal idiosyncrasies snuck in eventually, and they have to do with, one, my obsession with Bruce Lee, because I do think he was the most amazing creature, and his movies were so amazing to me. Even before I knew what an impact he had on Kung Fu, after watching these documentaries, he actually changed the whole face of that martial art. And it sounds like a joke, and I'm kidding, but usually when I'm kidding, I'm also serious. And with Recipe for Disaster, it's kind of a dark angle on almost like a vampire, and she's enjoying her reign of terror, and that was fun to express and in song without having to be that terrible person. And I like expressing things that don't necessarily come into my life, but it's kind of like a few series of movies going on that record. I think when I sing, I think of myself as a character. Even when I'm writing, I don't think of myself as me, and so that's how I'm able to say the ridiculous things I do, and it's a lot of fun for me.
Josie Cotton is my guest. Straight ahead, we'll talk more about her new Pussycat Babylon album and an exciting Josie Cotton contest on Revenge of the 80s Radio.
Revenge of the 80s Radio!
Stop and think. Everything is a shocking thing. Everything is a Yesterday was your baby blue. Now you're painting a different view. Everything is a
Everything's Oh Yeah, from Josie Cotton's new album, Pussycat Babylon. She's my guest on Revenge of the 80s Radio. Josie, when last we had you on, you and I discussed our love for the classic B-movie. We discussed a little bit about that earlier in this interview. I wanted to get your thoughts on some of this as well. Fans will remember that Invasion of the B-Girls featured covers of songs from classic B-movie soundtracks, and a lot of modern producers have tried to recapture the magic of the old B-movies and haven't been able to do that, even though they've really tried hard with that. What do you see as why the 50s, 60s, and 70s B-movies had so much appeal and still have that appeal today?
I'm not quite sure why it continues to be an aesthetic that people seem to be so obsessed with, but I do think Quentin Tarantino really came close to reproducing that that feel that you get in those movies. And I always thought it was interesting when he described himself as a movie maker and not a filmmaker, because films are actually trying to say something, and he was never trying to say anything, which makes you freer to say something, if that makes any sense. I have met a lot of people who know these movies, and I don't know how they even see them, these kids, but I am a little scared and worried about the remake of Faster Pussycat Kill Kill. I think that is really playing with dynamite. I mean, how do you make that movie better than it was? Tourist Satana is not in it. Russ Meyer is not around. I really am reluctant to even see it. I'm so afraid they're going to massacre it, but I guess people are trying to recreate that era that you almost had to have been in to understand. So I don't know. I don't really have an exact answer to that question, Chris. It's vast. It's I could write a doctoral thesis on it, I suppose, but people smarter than me, I'm sure, have a lot of theories.
It seemed to be that the Herschel Gordon Lewises and the Roger Cormans of the world had some magic to what they did. They sort of inserted the right amount of camp to the movie, and I guess that's the word. Campy is used as more of a criticism or pejorative to older movies these days, but the fact is, just enough camp made these movies the classics they were.
Well, I agree, and I don't think being campy is a bad thing. I think you can say a lot more when you inject a certain amount of bad taste and humor rather than trying to make some statement about the world, which is usually boring, and you can't even tell anyone anything that's going to change their mind. But sometimes you can inject things by coming to the back door, so to speak, and that's always what the B movies, were for me. They just ignored all social norms and just went ahead with whatever ridiculous thing they were saying. And I don't know if some of these people were actually trying to be campy. I don't know if Roger Corman knew he was being campy, and that's almost like more amazing to me that he was taking it his work rather seriously, which it's kind of fantastic. Wow, he didn't even know what it was that he was doing. So that's ironic too.
The other thing is advanced technology may have spoiled some of today's moviegoers. What makes some of these old movies magical, especially the low-budget classics, is that they had to improvise many times. The science fiction movies didn't have a high budget. They didn't have a lot of special effects, so they had to do things that most directors wouldn't even think about doing today. They had to work harder with less to try to put out the best movie they could. These days, any producer can throw money at anything at this point, even if it's a slightly lower budget movie.
Well, that's true, and the better technology we have, the more they rely on that and not being creative. And also there was a lot more slack given to risque topics. There was more accepted nudity during Russ Meyer's time, and not that he used that to the best possible extent with all his enormous, gigantic boob movies, and not my favorite of his. But there is a lot more restriction on expression and whatnot. I'm really not that excited about a lot of movies anymore. It's really not my cup of tea, generally speaking.
And you don't see timeless horror movies today like you saw back then, mainly because A, of the special effects, B, they try too hard, and C, some of the best movies are remakes of the older movies.
Well, yes, exactly. Except that Wolfman was absolutely unwatchable, and as much as I love Benicio del Toro, it was sad to see him fall out of my own throne that I had put him on, because it was really such a horrible remake. And I have to say, though, I did love the Inception movie, and that is one instance where technology, I thought, really paid off. It was it was something I don't think it could have been done before. So there is hope for technology, Chris. I don't completely reject all technology.
Well, Josie, you talk about disappointment. I'm a radio guy. When I heard that there was going to be a movie called Wolfman, I went to it thinking it was a biography of Wolfman Jack. Think how disappointed I was.
Oh, well, then that's really sad.
I lead a sad radio life. There we go. They don't even do biographies or movies about radio guys. I don't know. Nobody cares. Well, I guess because we all have the faces for radio. Josie Cotton's my guest on Revenge of the 80s Radio. I did want to ask you, Josie, what are a couple of your favorite classic B-movies?
I have to say that I love a movie called Danger Diabolik. Did you ever see that one?
Yes, I like that one.
Yeah, that's pretty lovely. And I like some really obscure ones. I don't know if you ever saw Alice in Acid Land. That was a really odd one. And not a lot of people saw that. But I also like some of the classic ones. I don't know if you call them B-movies. They are now. But Planet of the Apes, I thought was pretty amazing. And that was, I guess, a big-budget movie at the time, I'm guessing. Those were pretty amazing, and they stand up. For me, I live in my own world, Chris. I don't know what I'm talking about with all the stuff. I look at them and I have my own, reaction. So I'm probably saying a lot of things that someone might, disagree with, whatever. But I just watch them as they come up now. I don't watch the same ones over and over, but the ones on my record, Invasion of the Beat Girls, are some of my favorites, and all, the Russ Meyers, and Beyond the Valley of the Dolls is untouchable in my opinion in terms of a B movie. Yet it had big funding, so we're getting into terminology I don't even understand, because they did have a big budget, but that is definitely a B movie, and they wouldn't allow that kind of nudity now, I don't believe. So
what I really liked, Josie, was that your video for Man Eater was a lot like an old B movie.
Yeah, it was. It was funny. I brought the idea to my director, Jonathan London, and for a kind of a much trashier version of it, of reproducing that movie, and he wrote a script which made it into another kind of B movie, which was really fun, because it was a B movie about a B movie. I hope to do some more of those kind of videos. I'd actually love to do videos for all those songs, because they are classic movies and they kind of deserve, some acknowledgement. And since I stole their theme songs, basically, including Black Klansman, which...
That would be an interesting video.
Yeah. So there were a number that at some point I would just love to put into video format representation of those movies and for that record.
Also, a video of Mothra would be fun too, wouldn't it be?
Yes, it would be so fun.
Josie, you just finished a video for See the New Hong Kong from Pussycat Babylon, as we're talking about videos.
Well, it is like an Asian B-movie, love story, / science fiction video that has a lot of my own personal possessions in it, like my last video. I have a huge collection of Asian artifacts from Japanese and Chinese, and so we were able to, because of the nature of the title, See the New Hong Kong, we were able to put a lot of that into the video, and I think I've finally reached my satisfaction of all things Asian, because you don't get more Asian references than in this video. It's kind of insane.
See the New Hong Kong and other tracks on Pussycat Babylon really showed an interesting range to your vocal talents as well. One song that was a standout to me was Stop Iggy Pop, where you had that sultry voice for part of it during the verses. Then when you went to the chorus, it was a nice short staccato.
Yes, that was an experimentation of sounds that ended up having that title. I was writing the music before I had the lyrics, which is sometimes very hard to come back later and inject lyrics. I did not have a title for a long time, so the chorus was I just didn't know what the hell to do with that. And eventually I started noticing that it sounded very much like I was saying, "Stop Iggy Pop." And I just thought that was like an amazing song title, and a story came from that title. It's very insane, a story having to do with aliens and someone who crashes and is hiding in a disco, and they're looking for Iggy Pop, and they have to kill him, and so that was totally doing it backwards. But yeah, that's a very techno song, and it's one of my favorite songs on the record. It was actually one of the songs I played every instrument on there except the drums.
Well, that's interesting.
I programmed it, and it was the first time I ever did absolutely the drum programming and the bass and the keyboard and all of it. So that was kind of a thrill to hear something that you are solely responsible for its creation, for good or bad. And that's something I do plan on doing a video for that one as well, and see what happens with that.
Aren't you worried that Iggy Pop's going to come out with a song called Stop Josie Cotton?
I could only pray he would. If there's any way I could get him in this video, I would so love to get his image. And if not, we will have a cardboard cutout, which will move around and be very much like those low-budget movies you were talking about, just a shameless stealing of his likeness.
With a string, and you can, like a marionette or something like that, you can walk him around.
Something like that, yeah.
I used to love the
It will embarrass him completely, so he has to do the video or he will be embarrassed.
I used to love the old first seasons of Lost in Space where they showed the Jupiter 2 flying around. You could see the string.
Yes, there was an amazing English TV show, a science fiction called UFO. Do you remember that one?
Vaguely.
That was a good one. It was a very unsympathetic guy from the future who killed people and was very handsome and was a dark soul in this super mad pad futuristic spaceship kind of thing. It's wonderful. I think it's from the 60s, so that's something to look out for.
With me is Josie Cotton. Straight ahead, we'll talk more about her new album, Pussycat Babylon, and the Johnny Are You Queer video contest on Revenge of the 80s Radio.
This is Josie Cotton, and you're listening to Revenge of the 80s Radio.
Me secret of love is wigs and foreign accents. Tell me who it hurts when I dress up like a sexy nurse. Kittens man your spaceships, robots rip your rockets. We're headed for the stars, Venus, Mars, and I'm one with everything on it, the one with everything on it. Kitty, 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 calling all girls, making this a better world. Kitty, 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 calling all girls, making this a better world. Calling all girls, 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 calling all girls.
Calling All Girls from Josie Cotton's new Pussycat Babylon album. Josie is my guest on Revenge of the 80s Radio. Josie, we've talked about some of the tracks independently, but overall, what do you want people who listen to Pussycat Babylon to know about you as an artist?
I want them to know as little as possible. I'd like to be invisible, actually, so that they just hear what I do, and that's not going to be possible. So I am the face to the sounds I make, and I don't know. I think the songs speak for themselves. I in a way, they are entities to themselves, and I feel often that I'm just channeling the stuff. I don't feel like I make it. I feel like I fine tune it. It comes through me, and I'm just a radio basically from another plane. To take it into B-movie terms.
Now, Josie, along with your new original tracks are two remixes of the song you're best known for, Johnny, Are You Queer? In one of them, you even added a rap to it by an interesting duo called Elephant. Tell us a bit about that one.
It's funny. I had finished the record. I was all set to put it out. There were no Johnny remixes on it at all, and I was working with a manager and various people who urged me to do a remix of Johnny, and I had always wanted to do something along that line, and it seemed like the perfect time, but I did have to go kicking and screaming into that decision because I did not want to go through it again, and there were so many questions around, is it still socially viable? Is it still funny? Is it still edgy? And if it was no to any of those, then I didn't really see the point in doing it, because part of that song was the time. People use the word queer now. It doesn't have the same effect on people. So it was really tricky, and the reason I used the version with Elephant was because when they put their rap on it, that was the first version I did, it absolutely caused this whole reaction very similar to when I first put that song out. People were upset. People were threatened. People were laughing. They were embarrassed. They were angry. And I thought it was so great because it reminded me of Johnny, Are You Queer? And that's the kind of reaction you want. And so I had to clean it up. I mean, they're really edgy, these guys, and it became really interesting to me to wonder, why was it okay in our culture for black musicians to be angry and to be edgy, and in hip hop in general, any race. Why weren't gay guys allowed to be risque and angry? And that became the question of the day. And people were threatened to quit. They were all up in arms, and that just makes me light up, because if you're not offending someone, you're doing something wrong, and you can quote me.
Yeah, if you're not offending somebody, you're putting somebody to sleep. That's what you're doing.
That's right. So that was my decision to put them on that, to put them on that single. And right now they're really blowing up. They at first were greeted with, well, the gay community doesn't like hip hop. They're not speaking for anyone. They're too young. They're too gay. It's every number of any number of reactions to them, and now it seems like it's causing quite a sensation. And so it's great to see them work out in that way.
From a technical standpoint, Josie, it really does mix in rather well.
I was worried about it. I didn't know if it fit the record, and there are probably 8 or 9 remixes of this song that we threw out there, and it's at one point I just stopped listening to them all. I was like, I can't hear it one more time. Please, somebody stop. With the Johnny Are You Queer? But I was glad, because it did chart. I mean, I was on the Billboard dance charts the first time in a very long time, so that was kind of thrilling. And to reconnecting with the gay community, they're wonderful fans, and I'm just going where the love is, Chris. Wherever I sense love, I'm there.
What you need to do, Josie, is to get a little bit more attention for this song. Drop a copy to Jan Crouch's office again. She'll probably help you out a little bit like last time.
Oh, right. Yeah. I'm sure they're loving the rebirth of the song.
I'll send her a CD, say compliments of me. Thank you for everything.
Okay. That's a great idea. They are people I love to irritate.
Josie, if one really breaks down the song, it's not very offensive, to be honest with you. But it's more likely that more than a few girls have had the same feelings for a guy who might not play for the same team, but the girls weren't sure, like what was described in the song. It's really just a regular situation.
It is a regular situation, and it was an innocent song. It's something that grabbed people's attention. I think they had never heard that word used in polite conversation before, and that was part of the humor angle of it. It was shocking to people. It's not shocking now, but it's odd, because once in a while I will hear from certain few gay guys, not very many, but they still find that word offensive, which is odd to me, since Queer Nation is, such a big organization and whatnot. So it's desensitizing us to a word is all, and I think that word is in our culture now.
If you dig hard enough, Josie, you'll find somebody who's offended by something.
Yeah, you can always find someone. Like I said, if they're not offended, I'm offended.
Josie, the other Johnny Are You Queer remix on Pussycat Babylon is a dance hit already.
Yes, the one on the record is a Danny Hot Wheel remix, and it was on the Billboard dance charts last month at 44, which is pretty good when you haven't been on there in a really long time. So that was one of the ones, and there were many different remixers involved, and like I said, I had to stop listening at some point. It was just so many. I couldn't hear anymore.
Coinciding with the release of Pussycat Babylon, you have a Johnny Are You Queer video contest that people can find more about on your website, josiecotton.com. But tell us about the contest.
Basically, it came about because back in the day, Elektra Records was so terrified of the song, they canceled the video shoot the night before we were shooting it, so there was never a video per se. And then over the years, there were so many people creating little videos with various actors, Johnny Depp, Johnny Knoxville and whatnot, and being Johnny. And so we thought it would be fun to see what people could come up with. And there's cash prize. We thought cash is better than dumb prizes. The people are just downloading them, and it's just pretty much getting started right now. It's $1,000 and other prizes going down. So it's just something fun to see what people come up with.
How can our listeners enter if they're interested?
They could go to my website and download their images. It's also on YouTube. It's probably Googleable, if that's a word.
Googleable, I like that. That's a great word. I think we should add that to the dictionary. Googleable, like Google-rific.
Googleable.
How are the videos being judged?
They're being judged. One is how many hits they get. The other is if I like it. I'm a judge, and other factors involved. I am not really sure exactly what the criteria is, but there is criteria, and someone has it, and they will use it.
Listeners can find out more about how to enter and check out the videos that are already up there on YouTube and josiecotton.com. That's Josie's website. By the way, you're sort of revamping it right now. What might we see on that in the near future?
I'm trying to make it more concise. I was told that it was a little rambling, and you had to take off all the flash because if you can't see it on your phone now, it's not a website really. So basically, I'm simplifying. I'm eliminating a lot, and I'm going to be talking more about the news and being more present on it, and just kind of more, there for people if they want to contact me.
Josie, any live shows coming up this year?
Yes, I'm going to be performing at the Winter Music Conference in Miami at the beginning of this month, and so I'm excited about that. And we'll be doing other shows, I'm sure, in San Francisco. Something's lined up, and so I'm just putting all that together right now. But yeah, in the next 3 weeks in Miami for sure.
Josie, are there any artistic ventures you might be working on that we would be seeing over the horizon?
I am working on something. I can't say exactly what it is, but I am writing a musical with a few people that I'm very excited about, and I'm doing a couple more videos, probably 3 more videos for this record, trying to promote this Pussycat Babylon as much as I can and begin recording probably at the end of the year for the next psychological outing that I call my record.
I like that. Psychological outing. That sounds even better. I should start calling my radio show a psychological outing. Josie, thank you again for coming on Revenge of the 80s Radio with me.
Well, you're so very welcome, Chris. It's always fun to talk to you.
I'd love to have you on again very, very soon. The album is Pussycat Babylon by Josie Cotton. You can get it from our Amazon store on our website, revengeofthe80sradio.com. That's revengeofthe80sradio.com. And you can also get it on josiecotton.com. josiecotton.com. Josie, we just talked about it, so we're going to play one of the new remixes of Johnny Are You Queer from Pussycat Babylon. This is Josie Cotton featuring Elephant with Johnny Are You Queer on Revenge of the 80s Radio.
Hey Johnny, what's the deal, boy? Is your love
Johnny makes all the rules.
I'm so afraid I'll lose you,
Bitch,
if I can't seduce you.
Bitch.
Is there something wrong? Johnny, come on strong. Oh, why are you so weird, boy? Johnny, are you queer? Johnny, are you queer? You're pushing me
just letting them ring off my bells. Just letting them ring off my
Johnny,
bells.
are you
Pretty boy
queer?
Johnny, he's got a dirty little hobby. And when you go to kiss him, bitch, you know there's something missing. Yeah, pretty boy Johnny, he's got a dirty little hobby. Got in late for a cause Johnny makes all the rules. I said, yeah, pretty boy Johnny, he's got a dirty little hobby. Dirty little hobby.
Oh, why are you forsaken?
Quiz.
Love you could be taken. I
Thanks.
wanna give it to you, but you never come through. Oh, why are you so weird? Johnny, are you queer? Boy, when you asked for a date, I thought that you were straight. Johnny, are you queer?
Oh, I've had a piece of that one little Johnny bitch. Another down low lover, another backseat trick. And you know my boy moves fast when he starts tapping that ass. Yeah, spitting faster than an atom, headed on back to your pad.
Hey Johnny, are you queer? Hey Johnny, Johnny, are you queer? Johnny, are you? Johnny, are you queer? No. Johnny, are you queer? Johnny, are you queer? Johnny, are you queer? Johnny, are you queer? Johnny, are you
Johnny, Are You Queer? Josie Cotton with Elephant, a special remix of that song, one of two, on Josie's new Pussycat Babylon album. You can see her video for See the New Hong Kong on YouTube. Check it out right now, or check it out on Josie's website, josiecotton.com. That's josiecotton.com. Pop onto our website anytime too, revengeofthe80sradio.com. Stop by our Amazon store and pick up Josie Cotton's Pussycat Babylon album. I want to thank Josie Cotton again for being my guest on this show, and I want to thank you for listening. I'll leave you now with another track from Josie Cotton's Pussycat Babylon. All I Can See Is the Face of Bruce Lee.
I am not amused on this sad lonely highway.
to